Female fencer disqualified after refusing match with a transgender athlete.
You know, there is a member on the board of directors here who supports me, and there is a policy that acknowledges me as a woman, so I am allowed to fence, and you will get black carded, is what trans rival Redmond Sullivan told Stephanie Turner, knee in protest. After refusing to compete, Turner was issued a black card by fencing officials, which suspended her from the competition. The controversial decision has sparked outrage on social media among users left dismayed by a female athlete being punished for choosing not to line up against a biological male.
And this is also like, you know, fencing is it's different than tennis, right? Or like basketball in a way, because like in basketball, you're playing against the other player, but like having physically interacting with the other player is not the win condition. Whereas in fencing, it kind of is.
In an exclusive interview with DailyMail.com, fencing star Turner revealed she has been scared to reach out to USA Fencing with her concerns, given the pro-trans views of high-ranking officials within the governing body. I don't even want to reach out because if I do, then I won't ever have a fair bout in my life.
This is what needs to happen, is that the other people that are competitors need to support her, because it doesn't really matter what the administration thinks, but if you have a bunch of people that are refusing to compete, then there's no, like, how can you be an administrator for something that's not happening? Well, then your job disappears. So that's what they need to do. Is fencing segregated by gender, usually for competitive events? Let me see what it says. Yes. Okay, so it is. Gender and age. Segregation is already rooted in sports history. There are inherent physical requirements of fencing that mandates it, and like some sports where strength and size difference may play a bigger role. Okay, so yes, in fact, fencing is divided based off of gender. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Well, I can look at this real quick. Fencing, Fox interview. So Fox interviewed her after this happened. Isn't the point that gender is arbitrary here? Like, it really doesn't matter? Well, I'm going to assume, like in every single other instance of physical expression, that actually gender does matter and men come out on top. Let's watch the interview first.
Be interested in a female fencer stands up for fairness in women's sports.
Yeah.
She did it by taking a knee and refusing to compete against a biological male at a tournament over the weekend. The referee's response, a black card, the sport's most severe penalty, which means expulsion from the tournament. Let's bring in the athlete at the center of it all, Stephanie Turner. And Stephanie, thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know how you can reconcile the fact that you have gendered competitions in fencing, but you don't want to have gendered competitions in fencing for this. I don't understand this at all. How does this work? Like, what's the thinking here?
So this was an Olympic qualifying event. My understanding of it is. This was something that you had prepared all your life for. It wasn't an Olympic qualifying event. I'm sorry. I had heard that this morning. It was an important event, though. And this is something that you've been preparing for an awfully long time. You decided that you were going to take yourself out of the tournament. What was the thinking in leading up to the decision where you took a knee?
Right. So this was actually a regional tournament held by the USFA at the University of Maryland. So
it's a competitive event then, right? I mean, because, you know, we're not talking about like a practice or training or sparring or something. This is a competitive event.
Part of my pre-competition ritual is to check the online registration to see who is going to be there and just double check my check-in times.
Yeah, that would make sense.
On the registration list, I saw Redmond Sullivan's name listed there. And I recognized this individual from a previous Redux article that had been written stating that this person was a man who had previously competed on the men's team at Wagner and was now competing as a woman within the USFA. At that point, I just got really disappointed with the USFA and with this tournament, and I just felt like at a loss. I'd already committed so much money to it and training hours, and I was literally looking forward to this. I do this tournament every year. Yeah. I think this may be like my 10th year in a row doing this tournament. And I just got really sad and I started crying because this was like the last thing I wanted to deal with in my competition.
So at one point in the video, so we see
yeah.
we see you take a knee, and then the official comes over. What did you say to the official at that point?
So the official came over to me and asked if I was still.
I think that like the problem is that in my opinion, like this is it's a very easy solution, right? But I think that a lot of people just don't really seem to understand it. And it's crazy that like a combat sport, there's even any debate on this, and like the Association for Fencing even allows it. That's what's really crazy to me is that, like, I mean, if you're like a trans person competing in the other gender, like, yeah, that's not a good thing. But like, really, I mean, it's the people that are letting it happen are the ones that are really wrong.
Refusing to fence.
It's insane. Yeah.
And I said yes. Oh, and you're talking about initially,
Yes.
or when I got the black card?
No, initially.
Initially, I told them that I was refusing to fence because this person is a man and I am a woman, and this is a women's tournament, and I refuse to fence on principle.
And then later, right after this, we see your opponent comes over. What did you say to your opponent at that point?
But I mean, other than
My
that,
opponent
it's not
was a
that
little
big of a
bit
deal.
confused, thinking that I was maybe hurt, and I said, no, I am refusing to fence you because I'm a woman and you are a man.
Yeah.
I have much love and respect for you, but I will not compete against you.
What was his response?
His response was, okay, but there's a member of the board of directors here, and he supports me, and there's a policy that says that I'm a woman and I'm allowed to compete in the women's tournament, and if you do this, you're going to get black carded. And I said, I know.
Yeah.
So here's what USA Fencing said in a statement to Fox News Digital. USA Fencing enacted our current transgender and non-binary athlete policy in 2023. The policy was designed to expand access to the sport of fencing and create inclusive, safe spaces.
Well, what are they saying here? So the policy is based on the principle that everyone should have the ability to participate in sports and was based upon the research available of the day. Well, I mean, it's based on a principle, but it's not based on science, is it? Because, like, why are all the other ones segmented by gender? Why isn't yours? I wonder why. Yeah, it's shocking. Yeah, like, what research is it that you're finding that shows you that biological men don't still have an advantage over women in sports? Well, how does this happen? Because basically, like, if a person says that they're trans, they're basically trans. This is something that you decide. So it's not like you have to be of a certain body mass index. You don't have to, have long hair. You don't need to have long nails. If a person wants to be trans, they just decide to be trans, right? And so how could you do any research on this in the first place? Because there's a huge spectrum of people that are trans. There are people that look like 98% like a woman and people that look 80% like a woman. And there's a big difference between those two, like especially how early somebody gets on, like the hormones and everything, how long they've been doing it. So how could you even do any, like, what research even are you doing? It doesn't even make sense to me. Well, I mean, here's the thing is like, if there was research that definitively showed that this was the case, that still doesn't break the fact that if you say that you're trans, then you're trans. Because like we're like this, their ideology is that anybody can decide that they're trans whenever they want to be trans. That's it, right?
Inclusive, safe spaces for female athletes.
Right. There's nothing for me and there's everything for him.
Yeah.
Because I have no choice as a woman, as a female, in where I compete. I am a woman and I have an athletic disadvantage to men, so I compete in the women's division, which is where I rightfully am. But he has been given this opportunity to fence in the women's division, and he can easily compete in the men's division. He could also compete at mixed events in local tournaments if he wants.
So there are mixed events, and so they're choosing not to go to the mixed event, and they're choosing to go explicitly to the female event. Well, I think, this is a crazy level of entitlement here, right? I mean, like, well, what's going on here? So if you have mixed events and you're not going to that, all you're doing is causing trouble. Like, can't people see that this person's just here causing trouble?
So the idea that
it's astonishing.
They're expanding the women's is just essentially making it an open tournament that can include men, and it ends up hurting me and other girls.
How dare you throw women under the gender BS bus? I mean, this doesn't come at the expense of male athletes. We don't see this on the flip side of the coin. This all comes.
That's because a female athlete taking testosterone is never going to be of the same physical level that a biological male athlete will ever be at. That's the reason everybody knows it.
I mean, this is happening across the country,
right.
and to a large degree, women support this.
Well, women support it because they're primarily not participating, and I think that people support social causes like this because it makes them feel good. Most people are not supporting this out of any sort of like logical foundation. They're not supporting it out of any sort of like thinking or like what's best for the most people. They're just saying that this is a good thing because this is what they think they're supposed to say. That's really the only reason they're doing it.
Right, it's happening in every sport and at every level, and there's really no option to go around this when there are extremists who take up positions within the authoritative body of USFA.
Yep.
So I have very little option other than being forced to fence. And I have gone down some other pathways, like back in 2023 Summer Nationals, I just didn't sign up to fence in the Div 1A women's foil because there was another transgender person that I'd recognized in that tournament. So, I mean, I've avoided it as much as I can, but at what point do I have to just avoid all tournaments altogether because there's going to be somebody who's trans there?
So, Stephanie, thank you for telling your story. We really appreciate it.
That's crazy. I don't know how this shit happens. I thought Trump banned it already. Well, that's in schools. This is like a national league or something that's separate. That's not directly with schools. So Trump banned it inside of like high schools and middle schools that are publicly like public schools. But that's a very different dynamic than what's being discussed here, because this is a separate event. I think that if more women are willing to like speak out against this and like actually not just kind of go along with it, because in the process of just going along with it, you run into a lot of problems. You have to think there's probably trans athletes that only do mixed events and male events, and this causes disdain and hatred against those people. Well, I do think that's true. Why is it that you as a trans person are unwilling to accept the biological reality that even if you take, hormone treatments, even if you get surgery, you are still going to have some biological advantages that the male body simply has organically. And so why don't you just play on the mixed team, right? Why don't you do that? National qualifier is a league. There's enough trans population to make a trans league. So if you have 100 women that are competing in a tournament and one trans person wants to compete in the tournament, is it more important that you do what's best for the 100 women or for the one trans person? It's the most obvious trolley problem of your life. So and also like you have to understand that like why do women's sports exist? Women's sports exist because women need a segregated space because they can't compete against men. So basically for men's sports are generally the sky is the limit, right? There's no law as far as I know that says that a woman can't be in the NBA or the NFL or something like that, but it's never going to happen because of biology. And so the difference is that women's sports exist by the definition of them being exclusionary. So if you allow people inside of women's sports that subverts that exclusionary rule, you effectively delete women's sports because that's the only reason why it exists.